Back to another live episode of the Relevant Recruiter Show. Thank you guys for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about inbound leads for your recruiting business and 4 simple steps that you can take to help make that a reality. So for those of you that are with me here live, if you can go to the chat, let me know that you can hear me. Let me know where you're located and what industry that you focus on. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to dive right into this bad boy today. Again, we've got 4 steps recruiting agencies are taking to generate inbound leads. I'm actually trying to get up on my phone here so I can interact with y'all folks that join me here. So I appreciate you guys being here with me live. Let's go ahead and we'll dive into this whole bad boy. So the first tip is really to become effective with inbound leads and really win online. The first thing you want to do is it's necessary to stand out in your marketplace. And this is one of the biggest challenges that recruiting agencies struggle. I speak with hundreds of recruiting agencies. I work with hundreds of recruiting agencies. And you know, this is the common kind of sticking point. So if maybe you're yourself personally struggling on how you differentiate yourself, go in the comments and let me know. But if you do struggle with differentiating yourself from the next recruiter, welcome to the club. It's definitely a challenge. And thank you guys for going to the chat here. So Marjorie, Tracy, Alan, Alex, and Scott, appreciate you guys being here with me live and sharing your details. Reno, Nevada, you can see the Wolfpack helmet there. So go Pack. All right. So again, first thing is really standing out, differentiating yourself from the competition. Again, this is very challenging. Here's what most people do. I kind of see this going in a couple of different ways. The first thing that most recruiters are doing is, they're just choosing to stay generalist. So, kind of hop in different niches, different jobs. Not saying you can't be successful this way, but, it's usually more of an uphill battle when I don't know exactly who my ideal client is. What that usually leads to is, unfortunately chasing jobs all the time. And then you're kind of left to just take whatever you get. So when you don't differentiate yourself, what happens is you really kind of position yourself as being an order taker. When you do properly differentiate yourself, that's when you start to get more of those exclusive and retained opportunities. Now, of course, you have to do the job. Let's not confuse that. You have to be good at what you're doing. So I'm assuming that those that are watching are solid, good recruiters that know how to execute. And want more, some sort of exclusivity, some sort of first crack at it. And so that's the key thing. So knowing that most people are generalists, knowing that most people struggle with differentiation, and a lot of folks, really become job chasers and take on any job order. The real big challenge behind this, and this is kind of just more of a stereotype, so to speak, of the entire industry in a synopsis is, I think the biggest challenges that I see a recruiter and recruiting company face is actually they're focused when it comes to business development. They're focused more on their candidate profile than their client profile. And I can't tell you how many firms that I've worked with that actually that are very successful. And I'm talking $1 million plus firms that still don't have a very defined target market. And so this is critically important on the marketing side. And the reason why is just because the way the industry's kind of been brought up with cold calling and kind of chasing, there's never been, marketing is still kind of fresh and new for the staffing and recruiting industry. So if you want to be effective with your business development, the first key thing is actually defining a core customer. And I know this is a challenge because you're like, hey, I can fill a role, I can fill the engineering role for the Fortune 500 company as quick as I can for the medium-sized company, but that doesn't work when it comes to business development. So you don't ever need to stop taking on business that's in your wheelhouse. But when you're going out for business development and marketing, very, very important that you have a clear customer in mind. For those of you that are listening and that are on this with me live right now, I would imagine that the big reason that you're here live right now is because you know that I exist for you. It's very clear, right? I have a very clear target market, which is independent recruiters and boutique agency recruiting firm owners. That's it. Now, does that mean I can't help a bigger firm? Of course I can. But when it comes to my marketing and business development, I am laser focused on folks like you so that I can put together presentations like this where you guys are listening and go, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, I don't know how to differentiate myself. Oh yeah, that's a struggle. I don't have a core target market. These are all things that, because I'm focused in this space, I can continue to learn and I can solve problems. And that's the key thing in terms of positioning. So with your standing out, the target market's important, but then you really want to position yourself as not just another recruiter. You want to be a trusted advisor, some sort of partner. That way you're spending more time working with, hiring decision makers and companies that value you rather than being an order taker, and hoping that your candidate is the one that's selected in the end. This is going to help you make way more revenue. It's going to help you save a lot of time when you actually can establish that type of relationship and partnership with your clients. So picking the niche is the first part. It's not enough. Now we need to really focus on how do you truly stand out and separate. And so we want to really focus on, some things that truly make you different. What is your experience? Yeah, that can be a part of your difference. Can't be the whole thing. Your niche and focus is a part of your difference, of course. But what are the outcomes? What are the benefits of working with you? What is your proof and track record of success? That's the things that really your clients want to know. And so you want to focus on, as you're building your differentiator, as all benefits for your clients. We are an economy in a world now that everybody wants to know what's in it for them. So that's the first key fundamental that we need to do to be successful with lead generation. And the reason is because as we start to implement these other things I'm going to share with you, it provides clarity. It provides clarity for your market, knowing who you are, who you stand for, who you work for, and that's the big part that I see low-hanging fruit for a lot of recruiters, is to just simply be very clear about who you help and who you serve. It doesn't have to be rocket science. So that's the key foundation for us to be able to stand out in the marketplace and actually capture the attention of our market so that we can ultimately generate that inbound lead. If you don't get this part right, don't even try the inbound lead generation. If you're going to try to be a generalist, I can tell you, you can create content, for example, all day long. It's going to be tough to cut through the noise. Unless you have, just a massive brand and following that you can leverage right away, you're in for an uphill battle if you try to be a generalist and go to market. So the next thing for inbound leads, and this is really important, is you have to have an audience. You need to have, people that follow you, that are connected to you, that ultimately, you can, expose yourself to, so to speak, not in a professional way. But yeah, Lisa, this will be on my channel, and you can go to my YouTube channel. There'll be a full recording of it there. So the next goal is to really turn LinkedIn into a lead machine. The number one challenge that faces any small business is obscurity. There's just not enough people that know you in your market. And so if you have been kind of, resting on your existing relationships and referrals, but you're starting to see that kind of dry up right now, this is one of those things you need to solve sooner than later. Because, when you have a couple of key accounts that, put hiring on hold for a little bit, that can be, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, depending on the size of your firm, in lost revenue. And so it's very important that you get this inbound lead generation system right, so that you can eliminate revenue gaps and ultimately, peak out with your ideal, revenue goals. And so, with the LinkedIn lead machine, the first goal with this is to simply just grow your network with your ideal hiring decision makers, for example. And obviously you can do this on the candidate side of things as well. But that's going to just start to expose me, my personal brand, to more people. And you want to do this every single day on a consistent basis. Here's what most people do on LinkedIn. First, they don't actually proactively grow their network. That's the first common mistake, is people just are on LinkedIn, but they don't have no proactive strategy to grow your network. You should be growing your network daily. Okay. And it should, at the end of the week, it should be hundreds of people that you're adding to your network every single week. The next mistake that most people do is they're overly selective. They pound their chest about how they only let certain people get into LinkedIn. And that is like the most old school way of thinking. It's so flawed, in my opinion. And so if you're in that thinking, I would encourage you to, add more people. You need to expose yourself to more people if you want to be good in business. Trying to become the best kept secret and only adding selective people to my LinkedIn profile is only causing you more harm. Now, there's a balance to this, because the other mistake that people do is they just grow their network without any strategy. And they just have a pool of people that they're connected with that, they're not aligned. And so I can connect with people all day long. But, if it's not a strategic connection, then, I'm just basically adding numbers for numbers' sake. And then the other thing that most people are doing on LinkedIn is they just kind of take their offline approach. and bring it online. And Tracy, you're bringing this up right now in a good time. So what most people do, Tracy, is they actually connect and then they try to bring their cold call script, so for example, and bring it onto LinkedIn. And so they try to sell through the inbox. It's the wrong way to do it. Okay. 5 years ago, we could do that. 5 years ago, we could connect to you. We could send you a nice, beautiful message and pick up some low-hanging fruit along the way. But now, if you're just connecting and you are trying to pitch your services and make yourself sound like the most wonderful recruiting firm in the world, and you're not seeing results, that's why. Because people don't want to be sold to. They don't want to be pitched to. So here's what you want to do if you want to get this right. Okay. The first thing you need to do is you need to strategically grow your network. You need to be making sure that the people are in your network. No, we're not playing a numbers game, so there's a balance, right? Yeah, you don't want to be overly, selective with your connections, but you also don't want to just be spraying, right? So that's the key, is having a strategic, very clear target market. So for me, for example, I only connect with, as much as I possibly can, I'm not saying only, but for the most part, I'm connecting with either owners or leaders of boutique recruiting agencies. Typically these firms, my lights tripping out here. Typically these firms, are somewhere between independents to 1 to 10 employees, and then it can go up from there. So for me, that means I'm drawing connections with CEOs. I'm drawing connections with managing partners, presidents, owners, founders, etc. Right? Very strategic in terms of who I am connecting with. And so I would encourage you to do the same. Don't just connect with anybody, right? Who are the most probable people that are actually going to find value in what you do? Okay. The next thing from there is you want to play a long game with your message. What I mean by that is we don't want to connect and pitch. First off, what that does for your prospect is you're kind of connecting and saying, hey, look at me, I'm desperate for business, so I'm going to come out and give you the most, easy approach for me to try to get a quick win. And honestly, some of you probably experience that. And so it's not to say that you can't win by connecting and pitching, but you usually do more harm than good along the way. You usually end up burning down some bridges along the way. And so, what you'd want to do here is, rather than pitch, you're going to play the long game. And what you want to do with your messaging is actually focusing on dialogue. Okay. So I'm not trying to ask somebody if I can, help them grow their recruiting business necessarily. I might come out, if you're in the recruiting space, you might come out and do a little bit of market research. What are your candidates saying to you? If you're in a market right now that's experiencing layoffs, it'd be a great time to do a little bit of market research on the behalf of your candidates and see what your connections are doing in terms of hiring in this moment right now. Hey, I'm reaching out. A lot of the engineers I work with are, really feeling a lot of doubt and fear because of the uncertainty in the market. So just want to reach out to my network, do a little bit of research. Curious, what are your guys' hiring plans for Q3? Basic messages like that are a little bit more conversational are going to get you into contact with people. Okay, so that's the first thing. Focus on dialogue. The other thing is keep it short. My goodness. Gosh, I see people that send me, their automated messages and they're paragraphs long. And it's like, I would never even, I don't have time. And so neither do your prospects. So if you're losing with your messaging strategy, 2 tweaks, make it 75% shorter and focus on dialogue. And that's how you're going to really get people to see that you're not desperately trying to sell them, that you're genuinely trying to build a relationship with them. And that's the thing, guys, is you can't just pretend that that's what you want to do. You have to have an approach that actually aligns with you and your company and what your actual beliefs are and how you want to engage with people, right? I want to play a long game. I want to build connections. I know that by doing it that way, I don't need to put the writing on the wall if I'm a recruiter and I can help you. So when I give you that example of like, hey, reaching out to do a little bit of, market research, my clients get responses back all the time. They're like, hey, we're actually hiring right now. Can you help us with that? So you don't need to approach them and ask them for business in order for them to be intelligent enough to see that you can help them if you dial in your LinkedIn profile properly and make sure that your LinkedIn profile stands out. Then that's kind of how these things flow together. So kind of connecting the dots, like, hey, I have this target market that I'm really going to stand out and differentiate myself to, right? That's what my first step. Now I'm going to take LinkedIn and I'm going to expose myself in a professional way to all of my connections that now join with me. I'm going to ask, thoughtful questions. I'm going to get into dialogue with some people, knowing that, prospecting is always still dealing with no's or ignores all day long. There's nothing that kind of solves that. You're not going to have a perfect message. It's also gonna, all of a sudden going to inspire a company to hire. So that brings us into the next thing, is, one of the powerful things about this overall strategy and what makes it so simple is, again, we're very simply figuring out our target market. We're very simply starting to expose and connect and grow our network with those types of individuals. We're keeping it simple by having more conversational type of messaging. And then we also know that, even with great messaging, we're not going to, force companies to hire. People aren't going to just, oh, here's, Marjorie, she's showed up in my inbox, so now it's time for me to hire. It doesn't work that way. We need to be there when the need arises. And that's why we need to have a great content conversion system. Okay. And so you want to get into a habit of consistently creating content. And it makes it easy when I know that I'm creating content for all the people that I'm connecting with specifically. Again, this is simple. I'm standing out to this audience. I'm growing my network with this audience. I'm engaging with messaging with this audience. And then I'm going to nurture this audience and add value with this. So here's where most people get it wrong with content. One, they're not believers. They still don't take any activity. They still think that content is not a necessary thing for your recruiting business. If you still think that way, that's fine. You'll probably exist for another couple more years before you're completely irrelevant in the marketplace. Unless you've been in this space for 30 years, you've got a track record and a Rolodex, a mile long, you're going to become irrelevant if you don't have an online strategy. Okay. This is the way through. This is the way people are winning now. And not only is it the way that winning, but it's also providing sanity for firm owners and, your team by not constantly forcing people in these meaningless phone calling metrics where half the time you're dealing with an automated voice system. So when it comes to content, what most people do, again, is they don't believe, so they don't post. But when they do post, their efforts are random, so they're not consistent. And then their efforts aren't strategic. So they are, showing up here and there, nothing's consistent. All they do, for example, is maybe post their open jobs, but when they post their open job, it's not even different than the next recruiter out there. It's just like, hey, great opportunity for a senior engineering manager, and we're not using any type of creativity to really capture the market. Okay. And so they don't really, the other common mistake or challenge that people are doing with their content is they look at content and they think marketing is selling themselves through content. So it's all promotional things. It's all promotional things, right? So marketing, this is the way I think of it. I don't think this is like a formal definition, but the way I think of it is like marketing should really be all about your prospect. This is where you should really be connecting with your prospect. And again, this is why it's so important to have that core target market so that I can start to, figure out what their pains are, what their problems are, and help solve, their problems at a higher level, right, with my content than the next person. So that's why it's important to have that target market so that I can dig in and I can create more marketing content that's, again, what's in it for me, that's more focused on my market. That's how I capture attention. And so one of the things I see, again, other people doing is they're just promoting their business. Hey, here's why you should work with us. Here's, ABC staffing company is the best. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever do those things, but when you lead with that, if nobody's hiring, then you've lost the audience, right? So if you can come up and you can be more focused on, playing a longer game with your content and not always trying to be transactional with your content, that'll be powerful. But one of the key mistakes that recruiters make is they speak to other recruiters. It's like they bitch about hiring decision makers and candidates and fall off. And it's like, there's so many recruiters that I see that post on LinkedIn, and then you go actually look at who's engaging with their posts, and it's just a bunch of other recruiters. If that's what you've got going on, you're missing it. There's a huge opportunity. You need to speak to your target audience. You don't need validation from other recruiters. It's a huge waste of time. And in fact, you're probably turning off hiring decision makers and candidates by talking down, by explaining your frustrations. It's like, instead of, bitching so you can get validation from your other recruiters, why don't you just take that thing and solve that problem? Now you're going to add value to your network. I don't need validation from another coach. I have one market, and I'm not even trying to get validation from. I have one market that I'm trying to impact. And your opinion is the only one that really matters to me. Independent and boutique recruiting agency owners and recruiters within those types of firms. Outside of that, I'm not trying to get validation from anything else. So if you're creating content, hey, you got great likes and interaction on LinkedIn, but you're not seeing any results, maybe test your pulse and see if you're who you're creating your content for. Okay. So if you want to do this right, the right way, what you want to do is make your content again all about your client. And then you want to focus on these three, pillars. The first one is your leadership pillar. The leadership pillar is really what establishes you as being the authority. So again, this is kind of where you're going to tap into your market's pains, their problems, their frustrations, help identify those things for them. Don't assume they know why their bottlenecks are in their hiring. Don't assume or undervalue the information that you can bring to the table. The leadership, pillar is the chance for you to kind of really put a flag in the ground and say, hey guys, we're doing it this way. Follow me this way. It's also the way for you to be able to demonstrate your success of, placements that you've made, testimonials that you've had, open positions that you have, really stand out and lead your market. That's the first content pillar. The next one is the service pillar. And this is really where you want to add value and educate. Okay. And this is really, you're going to share your kind of more your how-to stuff. How to land, your next engineering job, how to nail your next engineering interview, 3 tips for, your next engineering move. Three things I've learned helping ABC company, hire 3 quality control engineers. So that's the whole idea with the value, is where you're really just demonstrating, rather than telling people, hey, here's how I'm different. You just start showing them, here's your tips, here's your tricks, here's your how-tos. All of those types of things, are a great place to really kind of establish you as a thought leader in the space and give a lot of goodwill to the market. And this really allows you to really stay top of mind with your network without always selling to them, so that you can constantly nurture them. So when their need does arise, it's like, oh yeah, you know what? I want to work with Lisa. That's the person I want to work with. And so that's where the content comes into play. That's the value of having the, service-based content. The third pillar is the one that's most overlooked. The third pillar is the connection pillar. Who are you? Tell me about you. Who are you outside of business? Are you a husband? Are you a wife? Kids? Pets? Shopping? Hunting? Fishing? Sports? Spirituality? Like, how can I connect with you? What makes you tick outside of just being a recruiter? Right? I can't tell you how many people come on the phone call with me and can talk to me all about football just because they either watched a live show, they've seen my story about football. It's me showing, myself. There's a lot of people that come to my calls and know that I have a blended family because I talk about my blended family. There's people that come to calls and know that I have 5 kids. Now, the thing about it is that, and especially on a platform like LinkedIn, is you get all of the experts on LinkedIn are like, don't share your personal stuff. This platform is only for professional. And that's the biggest crock that anybody's ever said. It's social media. We need to genuinely connect with people. So don't confuse this. I'm not telling you to post pictures with your dog every day and say, look at Fluffy, but where you have the opportunity to connect with your audience, share a unique experience, share your journey, show the type of, husband you are, wife you are, mom you are, things that you add value. And you can do it in a thoughtful way where, you can share a picture, that's something that's personal, and then also tie that back into a lesson that you've learned with business. So it's definitely, here's the thing, why this is such an important component. Okay. And thank you, Tracy, for that feedback. It's such an important component because you guys have seen my trainings on here, or some of you may have. If you haven't, check out my chat GPT tutorial. You can go to my YouTube channel and check that out. It's also on my podcast. But there's a rise of AI. Once people start figuring this stuff out, content is going to become plentiful. It's going to become more, which is going to make it harder for somebody who's just going on a content journey to cut through the noise. So being authentic and real is what actually gets you to stand out from the marketplace. So if you were to think about it, if you just watch somebody and all they did was add value and do leadership style of posting and stuff, there's a missing component to that relationship. And that's the human connection piece. And this is so important now, especially after like what we've been through with COVID and stuff like that. People want connection. And so when you do this properly, you're going to really make this kind of a bond with your audience, right? And that's the whole idea with content, is to build some sort of a relationship. So there's, folks that are on here that I've worked with before that are on this live training with me here. There's folks that I've seen on my other live trainings here. There's folks that I know are going to, eventually work with me. And this is just a chance for you guys to kind of see and get to know me and see that, hey, outside of Donnie doing, being a coach in the, a marketing coach in the recruiting space, oh, he's also a family guy. Oh, he also loves to fish. He loves to go watch football. He played football. There's all these types of things that build natural rapport, and really kind of, again, connect. And so all the people that are on here watching, we're actually building a relationship, whether you want to know that or not. Like, you guys are getting to know me. It's a little bit one way right now, right? But eventually, like, if this goes to the next step, then as we get on the phone call, there's a lot of rapport built. Now you've seen my system, you trust and see like what I have to say. And then it's like, oh, you know what? I actually kind of like this guy, or not, which I'm fine with. So, that's the connection pillar. And so lead, connect, serve. Lead your market, add value to your market, and then connect with them by being real and authentic. And that authenticity piece is so key now to be able to cut through the noise. All right. So if you guys are enjoying this, go give me a little love in the comments there, a little likes. I'm about to go through the last fourth simple thing that we need to do. Okay. So the next thing you want to do is really start to look at your efforts outside of LinkedIn. Okay. Here's where most recruiting firms are at right now. Most recruiting firms don't even have a presence outside of LinkedIn. So there's opportunity out there. But with that being said, some of the firms that are out there, on LinkedIn, or have stuff that's outside of LinkedIn, what happens is they just have a kind of a standard presence. They kind of spread themselves too thin, too fast. And we'll dive into that a little bit more. And then one of the common things that people do, that's very common in this industry, is purchase data and then spam people. So you guys have all heard of, Zoom Info, Seamless, Seek Out, Snovio, Apollo, Rocket Reach. These are all great data tools. But what most of your competitors are doing are they're just grabbing that data, spamming people. And I'm not saying, again, having drip campaigns, there's nothing wrong with that. They're effective and they can work. But the best place to be is permission-based marketing. And so what you want to do with your multi-channel strategy, if we were just talking about email to start here, that's the easiest low-hanging fruit for any recruiting firm. But think of it more like a newsletter. Now, I don't have a newsletter. If you're on my email list, you'll see that I just kind of, message my list a couple times per week and adding value. So I don't have a formal newsletter, and I don't think that you need to. In fact, to me, newsletters are kind of stiff, old, and corporate. But hey, if that's what you want to do and understand the concept of, you need to have a list of people. This list should start with all of your existing clients and candidates. From there, you should add prospects that haven't bought that yet. And then as you go out and you start prospecting, everybody that either gets on the phone with you, is a client, or says, hey, Tracy, not right now, but why don't you reach back out in Q3? Those are the types of people that need to be on a email list that's more newsletter style, which I call more of a nurturing campaign. And then now what we do is, rather than constantly reaching out and trying to pitch every time we need somebody, and that's the only time my audience hears from me, is I use my email list to actually build a relationship with the people on the list. I can't build a relationship when I'm spamming people. There's no context to the relationship. But if I've actually gotten people to give me permission, where they're like, yeah, you know what, Matt, reach back out to me, man. That sounds good. Then that is where the magic is, because people will open up your emails and read them. It's not about being always in the inbox. You have to get people to actually read. And so there has to be context around, where did this relationship start? Where did this person come from? Right? So if you can learn how to build out a list, which again, through just your natural prospecting is the easiest way to do it. From there, you can do lead magnets and things like that. But that's the real way to market. If you're really trying to become a marketing firm, if you're really trying to become a marketing firm that is a recruiting firm, then that's what you want to do. You want to have more permission-based marketing going on. Okay. So that's what you want to do on email. When you start looking at other social channels, there's not a right or wrong channel. What you want to do is figure out, well, and this can take some, research, and there's not always a right or wrong answer. There's not a clear path to this one. But the next place you should go outside of LinkedIn is, well, where do you think that most of your prospects would hang out, right? Hey, maybe you're in the creative industry, so maybe they're, very heavy on Instagram and on Pinterest. I don't know. Maybe, maybe YouTube is a big part of your industry. And again, I'm not saying that there's some magical playbook, but more importantly, it's like what the next platform that you pick, you want to pick that platform and then you want to get it right. So as I've grown, I've really started with LinkedIn. Once I got LinkedIn dialed in, I started getting consistent leads from LinkedIn. Then I went over and I started a Facebook group. And once I started getting consistent leads from my Facebook group, then I went over and I started a YouTube channel. And now I'm starting to get consistent leads from my YouTube channel. My channel's growing. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers now. So that's strategically how I do it. It's not about doing it all at once. It's about getting one right and then moving on. For some people, it's like, hey, you may not even need all the multi-channel, for being honest. LinkedIn, email, you can probably win if you're an independent recruiter. If you have bigger growth aspirations, then yeah, you need to expand your reach. And that's the whole idea, is when I have a different channel, I can expand to a different audience, and I'm going to build a relationship with that audience. So, before you go spread yourself thin, make sure you're really kind of dominating a platform first. And the last thing really, and I already hit on this, is just focus on permission-based marketing, guys. That is the way through. And, while you're doing the permission-based marketing, the other thing I want to mention is really, each platform, when it comes to content, has kind of its own format, so to speak, its own kind of the way you should post. There's always little different nuances on these platforms. But when you're first starting out and you start to go, to these other platforms, if you're creating content on LinkedIn, find a way to kind of, thoughtfully repurpose that content on the other platforms. You don't need to create everything from scratch. You might format the content a little bit differently, but that's going to be the easiest way to do that. And then always making sure that you're looking at repurposing content in general. This video can be transcribed and it can be turned into, well, this would be more like an ebook at this point. But you can take and transcribe your videos, turn them into little articles. You can take your articles and turn them into videos, however you decide to work. But there's not one place and one piece of content that should just be created once and then be done with. Okay. They should be repurposed and regurgitated multiple times. So that's what I have for you guys today. If you are running a recruiting firm right now and you're kind of feeling the slowdown of the economy, you feel like, what was humming last year isn't quite there right now. It is your responsibility to get ahead of this. The writing is on the wall in certain industries. Yeah, I know there's certain industries that haven't felt any impact. But right now, I know that there's a lot of industries, because I have a lot of people that are joining my program right now. And so I want to offer that same thing to you, is if you are not seeing the results you want right now, it's on you to make that change. And I've got a proven system, the Relevant Recruiter Method, which is how we help you implement these 4 steps. And this is so dialed in at this point, guys, I can guarantee your success. So there's really no risk for you to get on the phone call with me. If you're willing to go through the program, put in the work, we've got this thing fine-tuned. People are winning every single day, even in this economy that we're in right now. So if that's something that you're interested in, either drop a comment below, say that you want to get on a phone call. If you're not comfortable with doing that, send me a message right here on my LinkedIn messaging box, or if you're in YouTube, send me a message if you're watching right now, and I can help you change your business. Dan just is in the middle of my program, 30 days in, already got a client win. Coaching a team of accounting and finance professionals, all 3 members on the team, after they started launching their stuff, they've already picked up wins. People are returning their investment on this program within 30 to 60 days. Of course, that's not the truth for everybody. Okay. And of course, this program is not the magic pill. This program is a place for you to step into yourself, be the best version of yourself, and ultimately generate inbound leads. But you got to be willing to do the work. And of course, you got to be a badass recruiter, because that's what I look to work with. This is not a recruiting program. This is a program to help you expose yourself and become the most thoughtful, relevant recruiter in your market. So again, if you want to have that call, drop a comment in the link or send me a message here on LinkedIn. Thank you guys for being here with me today. I'll be back with another episode next week on the Relevant Recruiter Show. Thanks, guys.